Hello everyone, welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. Today I'm going to show you a card that I made for a blog hop that I belong to. It's the Casually Crafting blog and it's aimed at casual crafters, people who may not have lots of tools or lots of different things to use for their cards and projects. And we try and make all our projects without using things like a cut and emboss machine. So no die cuts, and we try to make it as easy as possible. But that doesn't mean it's only for casual crafters, because all of our designs, you can make a step up with it, you can change it slightly, and you can use just whatever you've got at home. So our design this month was this, a rectangle with, although it looks like a circle, it was for any shape, a long rectangle here and another rectangle with a sentiment. So my card that I made, I used the flowing flowers, and this is the stamp set that I'm using for the whole month of January. I have a class running on this at the end of January, and I think it's just a super set. It's a really easy set to use. And I'm going to show you how I made the card for that blog. So I started off with an unusual colour for me. I don't use much of this cinnamon cider, and it really matches one of the new papers. And this is called Heart and Home, and it's in the new mini catalogue. And I was going to use the very obvious paper with the bees on because that's cinnamon cider and it would have worked so well. But I actually went with this one, which is like the wood panelling on the back and then the little sprigs of flowers with pale papaya. And I used this side and I used this side. So what I did was I had my base card already cut. It's 8.5 by 5.5. I scored it at 4 1/4, and then I just folded it over, and using my bone folder, I just made it flat. Now, if you don't have a bone folder, use a stamp block. Anything that's flat and it's going to give you a good smooth surface, just use that to go across your card. And then for the front, I'm going to use a piece of the designer series paper that I showed you, and I'm going to use this side that has the wood panelling on, and this will fit right on the front here. If you check my blog afterwards, it has got all the sizings on for the card, so you don't need to look at what sizings I'm making right now. Okay, so that's going to go on, and then let me get that little sketch back. For the any shape, I'm going to use one of these doilies. I'm not cutting anything out, I'm just simply using the doily as it comes. You could use a square or a rectangle if you don't have the doilies, but this is also part of the Heart and Home set, and the doilies come in 3 colours. They come in the cinnamon cider and a basic grey and the misty moonlight. And if you don't like those colours, turn them over. They're white on the back. You could sponge them and make them a different colour. You could just use your watercolour pencils or your blends and go over them, or you can simply use them white. Okay, so let's pop those back because I've already got one out. I've got that other little strip of designer series paper. Remember I said I was going to use both sides. This piece is going to be my long rectangle across here. This is going to be my any shape piece. And then for my sentiment, I've got a very tiny little piece. It was actually just an offcut from when I was cutting card. It only measures 1/2 inch, and that's going to go down here. Okay. Now for inside here, I'm going to make one of the flowers that I showed you from this Flowing Flowers set. And I'm going to stamp this one here. So I'll move these to one side. We don't need those just at the moment. So I've got my pale papaya ink, and I'm actually going to stamp it twice. I'm going to stamp it once for the inside and once to cut. So I've already got the stamp mounted on a little block, and I'm just going to ink that up. And I want to make it a little bit darker in the middle. So I've got a little sponge dauber. You could use a piece of sponge, you could use a blending brush, whatever you want. And all I'm going to do is just dab extra ink on the middle of the flower. just so that it gives it a little bit more depth even. Now these are distinctive inks, which means when you stamp with them, they do come out with varying sort of shades of colour, even from the one stamping. You can see on here, you see how there's dark and light all mixed together. And you don't have to do stamping twice or anything. You normally just have to stamp once and you get all these colours. Okay, so that's the look I'm going for, with just a bit darker still in the middle. So that will be our inside. I've got another little scrap where I'm going to make exactly the same flower. So I'm just putting it back in my ink. I'm going to go back to doing my little sponge dauber. And again, I'm just going to press a bit more ink into the middle. And you can't really see it. You just have to sort of remember where you've been. Okay. And press that down. I'm not pushing, I'm just holding on to it just until the ink transfers. Now, pale papaya is a pale colour anyway, so don't expect that it's going to be really, really dark. And you see how it's quite a pale colour. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to fussy cut it out. You don't have to be really gentle. All you need to do is I'm going up to the edge and then I'm just cutting round. So I won't make you watch me do that. I have actually cut one out already. Okay. And what else I want to do is make these into sort of individual petals. So I'm just going to elongate the cuts that it has and just trim a little bit out because I want to fold the petals back a little bit and this would just make it easier. Okay. Just go down. You can follow the lines on the flower. You can make your own little lines just to give it a little bit more of a piece that I can fold over. It's very simple. And like I said, you don't have to be terribly delicate with it. Okay, and then I'm going to go get my little sponge dauber back and I'm just going to go around the edge of the whole flower, including those little slits that I've just made. And then it will look like they're individual petals and you won't see a lot of the white on the edge. So if you haven't cut it really, really well, it doesn't matter. This will give it just the effect of an individual petal. And you don't need to put any more ink on your sponge dauber. There's plenty on. It doesn't take much off just to do edgings. And I just sort of flick the sponge over. You can hear that little flicking sound. And often when I fussy cut things, I'll go around the edge just so that you can't see a harsh line, especially if it's inked, the edge is in black, and then I'll go around either with a sponge dauber or even a little black marker pen so that you don't have those white edges showing. It just looks a little bit nicer. Okay, so that's the end of that part. And what I'm going to do is just use my bone folder. I'm just going to fold or bend these petals just a little bit, and that way it'll just give it a little bit more depth on the card. Okay, so can you see it's just going to stand out a little bit. Now I did try this as well with the pale papaya, and instead of putting extra pale papaya on it, I put cinnamon cider. So it comes out really nicely, but it was just a little bit too dark for what I wanted. But experiment with the colours and find, you know, just what works for you. Okay, so time to assemble this really quick card. I'm going to attach this right through the middle. Excuse me, while I just get my glue. Just a little bead of glue all the way across. we go. Make sure that's level. You can make sure it's level just by checking the sides here. Checking that the edges are level there. Okay, and then next I'm going to do this part, this any shape part. I'm making sure that my flowers are going the right way, and I'm going to attach that here, but I'm not putting the whole of the circle on. I just want a little bit of it to cut off, so it's not quite the full circle. And I'm only putting glue on the circle in the centre, because the rest of it is going to stay on. It's not going to pop off. It's going to stay down. Okay, so I'm just line this up over the edge and make sure that it's sort of in the middle, top and bottom. And fold that piece over. I'll just press this piece down. And then what you can do, you can trim this off if you want to. So just take your scissors, and I've turned it over just so that I can see the edge easier. And I'm just going to cut down the edge of the paper, like that. I don't need this piece, so let's have that thrown away. Okay, so now we've got that same shape that's on our little sketch. Okay. So this gets attached to the front, and I'm just using liquid glue again. You could use a tear and tape, you could use a tape runner, whatever glue you like to use. It's only paper on paper. It doesn't have to be super duper strong. And then I'm going to pop that piece on the inside that we did already. You could add a little piece of designer series paper on here. You could stamp the same image on your envelope, or add a little piece on your envelope of the designer series paper, just so that it all matches. I'm going to put a little piece of the paper on my envelope. I'll probably put this one rather than the wooden planks. Now this is going to go on top of our circle here, and I'm going to attach it just with a couple of our dimensionals. Probably put 3 on. Let's take these off. And I'm going to put it just on a little angle, like this. Okay. Now, to do our little sentiment, which is going to go on here, oh, let's find a different piece. I'm just going to use the Just a Note sentiment, this one here, and I'm going to stamp in cinnamon cider. I've already got my stamp on my block. Let's just make sure I've got some ink on. Probably got a little bit too much there, so I won't stamp too heavy. And I'm just going to line it up. There we go. Oops, there we go. Just put the lid on here. Pop these others out of the way. And then I'm going to banner the end. I could use my punch that has a little banner on, or I'm actually just going to cut it with scissors. So it's going to fit over here. I'm just wondering if some of it will go under the flower there. It would. Let me do the bannered end first, and then I know how much I want to go under the flower. So I'm going to cut it across straight, and then I'm going to cut a little line right down the middle, and then go from the corner to the end of that little line in the middle, and the same on the other side. And that will just give me like a little pendented end. Let me see. I'm going to chop a tiny bit off this edge. I don't need it quite so long. There. That would be just right. But I think the end is just a little bit too long, so I'm going to chop that again. Make another little pennant on it. I don't need it quite as long as that. That's better. That's better length. Okay, and I'm going to put that on dimensionals as well. That way it'll just stand out a little bit more. Take these backings off. Oh, I want it to be over the designer series paper as well, so I'm just moving that down. There we are. Oh, what about a little bit, even a little bit further down? Let's see how that goes. Make sure it's straight. Let me see. Yep, that looks straight. Okay. And then I've got the little polished dots, and I'm just going to put some in the centre of this flower. I'm going to use the slightly coloured ones. I haven't got my pokey tool on the table at the moment, so I'm just going to do them with my scissors. Oops, this one's running away. Doesn't want to come off the little blade now. Oh, I'll do them with my fingers. Nope, don't want to come off my fingers either. It's really sticky. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna actually, I think I might put 5 on. Just like this. Doesn't look quite right, does it? Oh well, I'll play with that later. I'm going to take that one off for now. I'll play with that later and rearrange them a tiny bit. So that's a really quick and easy little card to make. You know what? I'm going to get my pokey tool, my old pokey tool. And then I can get these off a little bit easier. See? 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's have a look. I'm going to put just a few more in. That's better. I like that little pattern better. You could put some in here, you could put some more on the card. You don't have to arrange them like I did. But there we are, that's my sketch challenge card. So, and I've got all the elements that they've got. The only extra I've got is this little flower on the top. So I hope you enjoyed that card. Pop over to my blog and you will see all of the dimensions of the paper and everything that I cut for it, and just the names of the paper as well. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you all again really soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.